This is iFanboy Pick of the Week 892, brought to you by iFanboy listeners just like you who are washing their hands and wearing their masks because it's back, baby. Well, it never left, but it's back.
What are you gonna do?
Hello, my name is Connor Kilpatrick, and this is my co-host, Josh Flanagan.
Hello.
And this is iFanboy Pick of the Week, episode 892. And we are iFanboy, and every week one of us reads their stack of comics. They pick the book they like the best. We call that book the Pick of the Week, and we talk about that book, the other books from the week, the Patron Pick, listener mail, hopefully if we have time. Here's your spoiler warning. Exercise some caution while you're washing your hands. Josh?
Well, yeah, because you could chap. You could get chap.
Yeah,
Chappage.
you should keep your hands washed no matter what's going on in the world, but
It's true.
you should be washing your hands, fellas.
That's true. You know, I know that you said each week we read our books, but people need to know that we were in the mid 300s before I even realized that was the case. I came to the show, I thought, prepared for different topics, and they're like, Josh, you're supposed to read comics. And I was like,
you know what? That's actually not a joke, because if you go back to the early days of the show,
I was like once.
and the first handful of shows, you were like, I didn't get to my books this week. That's okay.
Well,
we talked about 4 books in the early days of the show.
We didn't. No, we were just. I thought we were just talking to you guys.
We were winging it.
Yeah, but I didn't think it was for anybody.
You just talked about your commute to the comic store and not the actual books.
Oh,
That's
that was
fine.
the problem. Is that I had started going to a shop that was like basically in Fresno.
That's far. That's too far, Josh.
It was in Winnetka, which wasn't a problem, but as I kept moving east in the valley, it got farther away. Wow, let's go back to this thing that was a horrible topic 1,000 years ago. I had the pick of the week, as you say.
Josh is you're tap dancing. You're procrastinating.
No, I'm doing no such thing.
Okay.
I don't know that I have a premise, but here we go. That's how this works, by the way.
Yes.
I come up with one premise, and I've gotten very good, as has Connor. It's just like, I know the thoughts will come to me, but I don't know what they're going to be until that.
Do you remember what it was like to do this show back when we already had the whole review written in our heads from writing the Pick of the Week review? It was so much easier.
I do. I see, though, I thought it would be harder, but those muscles, basically, I wrote the way that I think, which is the same way I talk. Mm-hmm. And I tend to be a mostly first draft guy. So it sort of starts at the same place. And I can't
I'm just saying we had an outline in our heads from having written a 1,000-word review. So it was easy to jump in. But yeah, sometimes I come into this and I'm like, I don't even know where I'm going to start.
I love that.
And I just go.
I love it. That's my favorite thing. I feel good about improvising, and I'm bad at preparing, so it works. Pick of the week is Void Rivals number 3. This is this new Transformers
Energon universe.
Transformers adjacent a book from Robert Kirkman with art by Lorenzo De Felici. Mateus Lopes Lopez on colors, and Russ Wooten, the solid rock of Image Comics lettering.
I'd like to point out,
yes,
if you look at the cover again, back to the covers, Kirkman is a man of our age. He grew up in the same comics we grew up. He has in that realm, in that standard deviation, he's got a little character on the cover in the little box in the corner. When's the last time you saw that?
Actually, it was on. I know what you're saying, but like literally, it was on some of the Marvel books this week. The
Marvel books have been doing which we haven't talked about, a wonderful tribute to John Romita. But however, comics used to be stacked at a newsstand, so you only saw that's why the comics titles in the top, because they used to be stacked on a newsstand. You only saw the top third of the book, so they used to put the character in a little box next to the title, so you'd know Detective Comics stars Batman, or who hear the Avengers. Captain America's in this book. And then once the market shifted from the newsstand to the comic store, that was less of a need, so they kind of went away. And I just saw this on the cover on Void Rivals number 3, and I just felt good about everything for a minute. Just for 1 minute, and then it went away.
Since we're here, if I have to mention the cover, I think it's a good composition, but I feel like it's lacking contrast.
Yeah, I think
like
the art,
dark muddle.
The art on all these Void Rivals covers hasn't been the best images. No. They have not been the best. We talked about the issue 2 when we were talking about the bad covers, actually, that week.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a good cover for that one. They're not the best covers, which is strange because The Walking Dead always had great covers, and so did Invincible.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
It's just a little bit of a muddle. It's a black green sort of like chunk of
and
stuff.
I was like, is that Optimus Prime behind her? Like, it was very confusing.
That would be good. Anyway,
awesome
so let's get to the pick of the week part. Is that I had a hard time with the pick of the week this week. I read some okay books. I read some books that we've talked about a lot of times, and I read some not good books. And the things that I liked were fine.
Sure.
End of the day, we have this Void Rivals book, which I am very invested in the story that is going on between these two aliens from warring races who are basically identical.
Yes.
I think it is written in such a way that it's, again, I think I've said this, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel to make a comic book or a movie or whatever compelling. And some people are very, very talented at instilling characters with life, and it doesn't necessarily matter what the premise is. And this is an interesting premise. Nope. A couple of warring alien races who hate each other. They all fight. They got stranded on a deserted planet together. Otherwise, this is the one where I kind of reminded that their world is called the Ring, and it's just a big circle, and half of it's for one side and half of it's for the other, and of course they hate each other.
Right.
And so in the last issue, they were captured by this. They were sucked in by this giant ship, and a character, I guess, who was a Transformers adjacent. You said something about that.
The one from the cliffhanger character, the one in the middle. He's some sort of deep cut character that I had no idea who it was. But yes.
So, but he's like a space scavenger. He's like, I'm gonna pick the ship up, see if there's any valuable, and a bounty hunter. And he does all those things. He captures them, and he's just looking for a profit. And then
he's very reasonable. Like, he gives them a ship.
He is quite.
Because their ship's more valuable, or what they have is more valuable. So he's like, you give me that, and I'll give you a ship. Like, he's not like trying to screw them or kill them. He's like,
so he takes off, and they take off into the catacombs of his ship, which is not all that unlike that thing in The Force Awakens.
Yes, very much like that.
So, and he's like, there are worse things in there. What are you going to do? This guy, he's go along to get along. He's cool. He's chill. They open up one door. It's got a big, scary, robotic sort of scorpion thing. They fight that off, close the door. They open up another, or they hear like, help me. By the way, if you are on a deserted prison and somebody's like, help me, I'm actually really nice.
You're on your own.
Yeah. And there's this alien who, by any visual accounts, is clearly evil. He's got a xenomorph head. He's got a MODOK sort of a power butt thing coming out. He's got tentacles. He's got red, angry eyes and sharp metal shark teeth. He's not a good dude. He's like a worse version of the Dominators from DC. Like he's got that. Like, when you look at that character, you're like, well, that's not a good guy. Right. That's a bad guy. That guy is absolutely getting profiled at the Intergalactic Airport.
Yeah. Again.
So you're called the Dominators, and I don't want to destroy you, but this is an insult. And then that guy says, hey, this guy who's here, he's no good. And you there's a thing like, I don't know who to believe. And like, they have to trust each other through this. And they're building a friendship, and it's making you feel comfortable with them. And then you're like, maybe they'll be a couple. You'd like, all of the little things go through your head. The things flip around, and they escape, the big ship. And then they're sort of approaching the planet like, wait, what are we going to do now? And then, of course, there's a big a cliffhanger reveal kind of thing at the end.
A twist.
Yeah.
Kirkman is not reinventing any wheels.
None.
Here. But all the stuff he's doing is really fun, and the book moves. We talked about it last time, how quickly we got off the planet that we expected to be on for like 6 issues at least. We were off by issue 2. Issue 3, we've already got a major change in the relationship of the characters. And as you said, it's a male character, it's a female character. You're expecting some sort of maybe romance, and maybe that still's coming. But we have a different twist at the end here. And so everything's happening very quickly, and I think it's really fun. And I think you don't have to invent the wheel, as you said, to make a compelling story. There's elements of Star Trek, the original series on here. There's elements of The Force Awakens in here. It's all familiar but it's told well, and that's how you succeed in telling serialized comics, because there's no new stories under the sun. You have to tell familiar stories in a new way, and that's what he's doing here.
Well, I mean, just in terms of like keeping things moving, I think this is probably one of my favorite parts of the book.
Yep.
Is that so they get to the tentacle guy and the two protagonists get to the dock, whatever, the hangar bay, whatever it is, and the alien guy's ship is awesome, by the way.
Yes,
it's
the
awesome
art, the Lorenzo De Felici art is a big part of why this book is incredibly fun. The characters are great. Those big sci-fi set pieces and ships and aliens, and it's all really great. As you said, the design of that creepy alien is cool. Like, the art's terrific.
So and the pig guys, the brown Gamorrean guard guy is there, and he's like, you know what, you don't want to trust this guy, and then the alien guy's like, you don't want to trust this guy, and he goes, listen, your ship's worth a lot. You give it to me, I'll give you this other one that's actually going to get you somewhere. Is that cool? And then the aliens, this is an outrage. You're not actually going to make a deal with him. Cut. They're out of there. They're in the new ship. They're flying away. That is over. We don't have to watch the discussion, the hemming and hawing, the argument, because it doesn't. It's a really good example of things in the story that don't need to be there. Like,
there's no fat here.
No fat, and we get moving. And that is he did that. He's been doing that for years. He was like, The Walking Dead was amazing at that.
And Invincible was like, Invincible moved pretty fast too.
Yeah. It's
things happen of the deconstructed early 2000s comic.
Yes. Well, what's interesting is that this isn't all that different than Saga. It isn't. I mean, like, it's two people, star-crossed lovers, whatever it is.
Fewer dongs.
There are, but like that was very in your feelings. And spending time with, and this one is like, all I want to do is entertain you.
This is a Saturday morning adventure cartoon where you're just like, episode to episode, the story is moving quick, and it's I'm always now very excited for it.
Yeah, I mean, so every time I get to the end of one of these issues, I was like, that's too short. I want the next. I desperately want to read the next issue, and that to me is the best thing that a comic book can do. Is like if the other issue if number 4 was available right now, I would have read it immediately.
Right.
Which is, we go back. You're right. We've been saying that since Invincible, since like this is the thing that it does have in common with Saga is that both Brian K. Vaughan, I haven't said his name in so long, I had to like find it.
Vaughan
and Kirkman are two of this century's best issue writers. They write in serial issues. They read great in trade, but the issues really give you a like, no, at that last second,
right.
In a way that really, they know how to do that last page or two. And so when I sort of thought about the books that I liked, I think the next book we talk about probably would have been my second place. But that was more like I appreciated a lot. And this, well, again, it's not new. It's still new. Like, I don't know.
Oh, it's still totally new. We don't really know what we're reading here, what the story of this book is. We don't know who the characters are. We don't know what the story is being told, which is often a critique we make, but that means that the rest of the story isn't fun. Like, you can get away with a lot if what you're doing is a really good time. And right now, I don't care that I don't really know what's going on because it's really fun to read.
And I know he's going to tell us.
Right.
Like,
the other thing is... in the back of my mind, I'm like, what's going to happen when they launch the other books? Like, what's that going to mean for all these books? Like, it's interesting. I don't know what that means. That what happens when the 2 G.I. Joe books launch and when Transformers launches? Like, are they all going to be connected? Are they not connected? They're all part of the shared universe. We saw the Transformer in the first issue of this Wood Rivals book. We don't know. Maybe they may be totally separate, or they may not be. Well, that's kind of exciting to find out.
De Felici, like right away. He's one of the best spaceship artists I've seen in a long time.
Great.
Like these sort of Star Wars, Transformer, like spaceships, like toy spaceships from, the 70s forward. There's an awesome page. There's actually a really awesome bit here on page. It's a 20 for me. So it's like the third to last page when they're approaching the ring, which kind of looks like a black hole. It's divided in half, and on the second panel, which is the one on the bottom, you can see the reflection of it in her visor.
Right.
And it's just a little distorted because of the curve. And I just noticed, and I was like, oh, what a really nice touch that I hadn't seen before. Why does it say TM in her eye? Oh, wait, I know why. This is a review copy. Sorry. Watermarks, man, they'll get you. Yeah, I have no regrets. I have no excuses about the thing. It wasn't immediately obvious, but when I sort of put them down, I saw there was a new Void Rivals, and a lot of times when there's sort of newer books, I forget about them. And when I saw this, I went, "Oh, right, this book. I like this book." And I knew I was in for a little bit of a romp, and it delivered. Just good comics.
Yeah, super fun. I'm excited. When it comes out, I'm excited, and so that's the mark of a comic that I'm enjoying. And you're right. This as a week on the whole, not a lot to be excited about, but there were enjoyable things.
Oh, sure. We learned something really important though this week.
What's that?
Dan Mora is either dead or just a human.
Well, he stepped out for that arc, that flashback arc to the circus.
Hey, Mark. Yeah, it's Dan. My right hand is on fire, so I'm gonna need.
Is that bad?
I can't do this week's issue because I'm gonna need a day and a half off. That's how long it takes me to do an issue. But the fact is, they're completely out of graphite. And anyway,
yeah. So, Batman Superman World's Finest 18 is another flashback drawn by Travis Moore. This time written by Mark Waid, Tamara Bonvillain, Steve Wands. And this one goes back, as the cover says, to the secret origin of the World's Finest Team. It's one of many, many how Batman and Superman first met. I've read 100 of them, and I love them all.
Yeah, it really is. I was like, Mark Waid, you've definitely done this.
Yeah. I don't care. When I was a kid, they told these stories over and over, and they never matched up, and it didn't matter. I've read a fucking novel about this. I think
they've done it twice in this volume of World's Finest.
Possibly. But this is cool, and it also had little nods. As I said before, we talked about the teaser image for this book. Maybe it was offline, I don't remember. But Magpie shows up. She's a like a Z-list Batman villain, and she was the character that they were chasing in the Man of Steel miniseries John Byrne did after Crisis. That also showed the first time Batman and Superman met was chasing Magpie. So she has a little cameo here as a nod to that. But I really want to talk about Jim Gordon's insultingly short jacket on page 3.
No, I'm looking at it.
You remember how you got all mad when they shortened Constantine's jacket?
Mm-hmm. That's how you
feel? From a trench to not even a 3/4 trench. This is a problem. I don't know what he's wearing. The collar is up like it's a trench, but it's like a bomber jacket size jacket.
It's like a bomber jacket on the bottom and
it's a mullet
coat. Yeah,
it's a mullet. It's not good.
I mean, I think it's a way of saying he was younger. He hadn't earned the confidence to go with the full trench. Maybe he tried it one day and the other cops were like, "Easy there, rookie," and they gave him the short jacket and hazed him. Maybe that's what it is. He's quite squat here. In fact, if you look at that, Bullock kind of looks like he's a more imposing person than Gordon. What I think is interesting right here, by the way, is that we are looking at a Batman 66. Sort of a style on Batman,
it was interesting
on the Batman's costume.
So in the old days, they would often shade his face, like it was just a shading. It wasn't an actual mask. It was just the way they did the shadow. And so then the 66 TV show took it and made it literal. And so here, Travis Moore does the same thing. He gives him a sort of a dark faceplate over his mask. And at first, I was like, "Well, that's weird." But then I was like, you know what? I kind of like it because it looks like retro and goofy. And it works.
Well, what is it? I don't think that I really noticed. I noticed the blue and gray, and that to me, that's what Batman looked like when I was a kid, and I like that. But then he's got the empty. He just has the black bat. There's no yellow oval around it, and I don't think that I really noticed it until we cut to Wayne Manor, and Bruce comes out of the clock in the wall, and he's in like a reasonable sweater vest and brown slacks, and I was like, "What is?" And then he's smiling actually a lot. And then what I really liked about this issue, I think my favorite thing is that they meet out in the world, and Batman, while looking bright and colorful and friendly in an Adam West sense, is like, I've figured out some things about you, because he does. You're probably from Kansas, blah blah blah. Oh my god, this is amazing. And he's like, well, who are you? And he's like, you first. And you're like, oh, he's gonna be combative about it. But 5 pages later, Kent gets a call at the Daily Planet. By the way, does Perry White answer the phone?
I guess he does. He's also reception.
Yeah. He answers the billionaire calls.
Yes.
And he's like, this Wayne guy wants to talk to you. And so, again, what you want to talk about? You want to talk about motion here? beginning of the page, he was in a coffee shop. Perry says, go over there. Last page, he's there. We don't waste a lot of time.
Right.
We move into there. And then very quickly, we learn that, Batman has figured out who he is immediately, in the way that everybody in comics forever has been like, of course you'd figure that out, but Batman can be the one. It's fine. And he sets a little trap to prove that
he figures them out not because of the glasses, because he tracks his movements and figures out he goes. Superman is most of the Daily Planet and this one apartment on Clinton Street, which is where Clark Kent lives.
You think he'd be smarter than that. And so then, he's like, well, what I did was I plugged my nose and I filled the room with non-smelling knockout gas. And then at the same time, like, Superman's clearly looking through the walls and being like, yeah, I know who you are too. And that's it. We're done. I liked that, like, Bruce was like, let's get it over with, but with a little game where I can show you I'm cool.
Right. I'm smart. And the whole story is people are disappearing. The Riddler's involved. People just are there 1 minute and gone the next. It happens to Alfred while Bruce is in the manor. And it has something to do with the negative zone. The negative zone, is that Fantastic Four? The Phantom Zone. Mm. And Jaxar, what's his name's son.
And I will tell you that had this been Pick of the Week, there would be one reason that it was Pick of the Week. It was delightful. Mm-hmm. It was fun. It was a version of these characters that is familiar and fun, but that we don't necessarily see all the time. Yep. But between the third to last and second to last page was my favorite page turn that I have seen in a very long time. And
the punch?
So Batman gets disappeared, and a punch comes, and all you see on the bottom of the page is Superman turning just before he sees it. There's speed lines and a fist, and you think, oh, we're going to get the reveal on the next one. But you cut to the next page, and he's been punched out of the ship that he's in. Beautiful page. He's filling, sort of the whole page. He's upside down and flying. It's just a great superhero page with scale and movement. Yep. And
great body language. He's sort of slumped in his flight.
Yep.
So he's knocked out. I found myself wondering. It must be this way because you'd have to schedule these things, but I would assume that Mark Waid knows. Okay, this is the arc I'm writing for Travis Moore because that's when Dan's taking a break to worry about his black hand. And because the script is different, right? It's not as action packed. Mm-hmm. I was trying to picture Dan Mora drawing this script, and certainly he could do it. Mm-hmm. But it's a lot more talky than this book usually is, because I think he's drawing more to the strengths of the artist. Travis Moore does really great people.
I mean, any comic writer worth his salt should do that to a certain extent. I'm sure that there are extenuating circumstances where it does it, but I would be shocked if that is not on Mark.
It's got to be, and also it's no coincidence that both these arcs are flashbacks. Mm-hmm. So he's sort of doing the flashbacks of these characters. The coloring, it was really fun. It was really fun.
Yeah, the coloring in it is really great. Like they're not in the dark.
It's one of the best things about the book is the coloring from Tamara Bonvillain. It's the bright, Batman 66 Silver Age style color pops. It's
and then, like, you cut the last panels, you cut to in the Phantom Zone, and, like, it's all purple, and Batman's that sort of space ghosty, sort of invisible comic book stuff. And it was what this book is a delight. Yes. It's just like, this is, if you just like, man, if you've missed Mark Waid doing Superman, like, they're trying to make it all up to you.
And they're doing a great job. And I live in fear every day of opening my computer and seeing Batman Superman World's Finest canceled. I have no evidence it's going to happen. They've given it spin-off books. I'm just saying, I love it so much.
Yeah.
That I just worry for 18
no issues. You're
it's like
you're getting close.
It's like when your kid leaves the house and you're just like, ooh,
Like, if it gets to 24, 25, I would be shocked if it went past that, because after that, it's like, you got to get to 50.
Right. After that, it's like, well, maybe they'll reboot it 1 again. But anyway, I'm just happy it exists in the world. I'm happy there's been 18 issues of it.
Speaking of in the world, if you're out there and you're old, you probably remember Groo as sort of a constant. And I never read it, really. Like, I was aware of, I knew Sergio Aragonés from Mad when I was a kid.
Sure.
And he would do those giant, the sort of Where's Waldo type type drawings with, everything going on in the giant scene and a billion little jokes in there. This is Sergio Aragonés drew and then co-wrote it with Mark Avanier. Mark Avanier is Jack Kirby's former assistant and sort of keeper of the Kirby flame, but also a pretty accomplished animation producer writer, and he's done comics here and there. This is so stupid, but it is so delightful.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I didn't read this one, but we talked about the one where Groo goes to the comic convention. We talked about a bunch of those issues.
Oh yeah, okay. I kind of remember that.
I wasn't a regular Groo reader in the 80s, but I certainly had a lot of Groo comics. And I like you, I mostly knew of Sergio from Mad, but I had probably like 25 Groo books in my long box.
I feel like the whole time this is the second one. I'd read the one before, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go ahead and give you the entire plot. Ready? Mm-hmm. Groo goes to a place and he's hungry.
I was going to say, is Groo hungry?
Yeah, no, he just wants food, and everybody's afraid of him. Everybody says he's super dumb, but everybody's afraid of him, and he's just hungry, but he's down for a fight, whatever. That's it. That's the whole thing. The king wants to get rid of him, but everybody's afraid of him. They can't beat him. And he's just smiling. And his dog also wants food. That's the other thing. His dog thinks about, he doesn't say it out loud, but his thought balloons are all about, I would also like food. And this is one of those things where however many years ago, I read Usagi Yojimbo years and years and years ago, and I enjoyed it. But sort of this last little chunk of it for the past, I want to say 5 years or so, every time one of them comes out, I just enjoy it so much. And I felt like I finally got what it was. Because I think when I was younger, I was like, why are people saying this is a genius? I don't understand, because it is so basic. By the way, Stan Sakai on letters here. And Stan Sakai wins Eisner Awards for letters. People forget that.
Right.
I don't know exactly why, but I hope that this is manual physical lettering. I hope that he draws it. That would make me so happy.
It's important to point out Sergio Aragonés is 85 years old.
You couldn't tell any difference between this drawing and the drawing that he did, 30,
he's a
40,
freak of nature. I mean, he's also widely regarded as the fastest comic artist who's ever lived. Like if you go to, you'd see him. We used to see him do live draws at Comic Cons, and he would just draw anything incredibly, incredibly fast.
And it's like
these look at his pages. There's no way to do those pages without being the fastest comic artist that ever lived.
It's so full, though. Yeah. There's a page here where there's a couple of panels where basically he gets to this place where people are trying to build a new town, and he's mad because there are no Ortixes left. And Ortix is a delicious, I'm guessing, an ungulate of some kind, and they've been made extinct in this area, and now he can't get them to eat, and he's very upset, as is the dog. And he comes upon this place where they're trying to build a new settlement, and everybody's like, "This is going to be great. There's going to be shops and everything." He goes, "What did you do to the animals?" And there's a bit where he's talking to this guy on the bank of a river, and in the background is this beautiful river, mountain, forest kind of thing, and there's animals everywhere. There's a herd of something crossing the river. There's flamingos and birds and hippos and all this stuff. And then the next panel is like all the houses and crap that they built in the same place. And it's just this it's a great comic book technique of sort of like a time jump and send back, and you can just do it with one image and you match them. And it's not reinventing the wheel, but he just did a great. You're telling me this guy's 85? Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, just like, because there's a rug on the wall in one of these, and it's just so intricately drawn. Like he's cutting no corners. There's a rug, same thing. There's like a rug that goes across the floor, and you look like where he's stepping, it's wrinkled a little as it moves, and as it drapes down over the stairs, you can see the folds of it where it's not perfect. And it's so cool. And every panel, like, there are literally dozens of things to look at on every page.
Yeah, that's always the hallmark of his page. That's why he works well with Mad, because he could fill it with jokes. And
it's just, I think I started to read that Tarzan one, and I didn't stick with it because I didn't care about the parts of it. But this is just, he's walking around, and it is the thing. Like I finally, after all of this time and effort, have learned to appreciate stuff like this in the way that I was supposed to. Mm-hmm. And it took me a long time, but that's not unusual for me. But I'm glad I found it. I'm glad I figured it out because it's fun.
I'm not reading this Wild's End book. I remember reading the original one back when Paul Montgomery was our third co-host, and he loved that book. So I remember reading that one, but I didn't read. Is this the third volume or the second volume?
So it's not named anything. It just is called Wild's End number 3 of 6 or whatever. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't say, like, there's no subtitle that indicates, but it's the 2023 one. I don't know how many there have been. I know there's been at least one others. I did not read that. I remember reading the first issue, and then I must have missed the rest of it. But I was like, all right, you know what? I feel like that was the thing I wanted to read, so I went for it. And you don't, I would have no idea that I had to read something prior to this.
Right.
Basically,
hopefully not. You hope that Dan Abnett could do that.
World of Animals. As happens often in European comics,
they're like British animals, right?
Yes, and it is very much like a Pooh Corner kind of thing.
This appears to be volume 3 of Wild's End, from what I can tell. Boom Studios,
and it's not as childish. They're like country British townsfolk.
Yes,
in the 30s or 40s or whatever it is. It's written by Dan Abnett, who is incredibly talented in many different ways. So here's what's going on. I don't know what the first one was like. There's a fishing boat, not unlike the Wave one by Wolfgang Peterson with the George Clooney. What's it called?
Perfect Storm. The Perfect Storm.
Perfect Storm.
I don't like thinking about that book.
They go out. They have to make a big catch. There's all sorts of tension among the different people. The grandfather owns the boat. He brings his grandson on, who's very listless. Then 2 of the crew members who are hoping to buy the boat at the end are worried that he's going to take it. But then those 2 are fighting. One of them is like a badger. He's kind of an asshole. And then there's she's like a deer woman who also wants to take over the boat. And then the thing is that the older dog, his memory is slipping. Mm-hmm. And so, like, they're trying not to talk about it, but there's a lot of tension. They get back into port and everyone's gone and they can't figure out what's going on. They find out that aliens have landed, not unlike a kind of a War of the Worlds kind of thing. Mm-hmm. They look like, like tall, they look like lampposts. And they've sort of hypnotized all of the townsfolk into building something for them, using, like hypnotized slave labor. And they're building a bigger lantern so they can bewitch the rest of England, I guess, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if the first one was supernatural with aliens, but with it, I complain about it all the time. Works here. Totally works here.
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, that aliens don't always equal bad, but
right.
I don't remember if there were aliens in the first one. I honestly don't. I just remember them being charming, rural British animals. That's all I remember.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, actually, the character stuff that is in the middle of it is very good, and the cartooning, the acting and postures and body language and faces of these animals comes through. Some people can just do that with animals, man, and it makes them more human than if they were. Right. It's a cartoon technique. We talked about Black Sad. It's like that. You can tell everything about them by what kind of animal they are, how they're dressed, and it's extremely effective. I don't know exactly what it is that by making anthropomorphic animals into human stories work so well, but it really can. It's delightful. Yeah. It's a joy. That the cartooning is really wonderful. I do not know who INJ Colbard is. I'm
pretty sure that was the original artist.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I remember that name.
All of the he does all the art and the letters. So basically, anything you see in the book was the result of this one person. Wonderful dialogue. Really enjoying it. Again, looking forward to this one. Is out of Boom Studios. Just a different book, just different stuff.
Cool. We're going to open up a new corner. We have many corners in our room that we record in, and this one is called Krakoa Corner because I'm all in on the X-Men right now. I haven't been this all in since the creation of Krakoa, where I read every X-Men book they put out. I didn't stick with them all, but I read each first issue. But I haven't been that this excited about the X-Men in a while. So there were 3 books this week. We'll start with Uncanny Avengers #1 from Jerry Duggan, Javier Guaron. And this feels like more like the flagship book. I mean, X-Men is, I guess, the flagship book, but this feels very much also like a flagship book in the story of the fall of X, where, this is not a new concept. This happened before, actually, with Rick Remender, was the Avengers and the X-Men sort of combining into one mixed team. So here we have Captain America, Deadpool, and Quicksilver, who is not a mutant anymore. We need to get back to that in a second. Teaming up with Rogue, Monet, and Psylocke to be the Unity team to help, because all the X-Men are being chased out of the off Earth, basically, and hunted. And I thought it was super fun. I like the mix of characters. There's lots of weird things here that I didn't understand. I didn't understand Ben Urich being the owner of the Daily Bugle. I must have missed that in some book.
His mirrored glasses.
I really hate that the change they made to Quicksilver, because of the whole Ike Perlmutter hatred of the X-Men, is stuck, and he's no longer a mutant, and he's no longer the son of Magneto. I think those are all terrible decisions that need to be retconned post-haste. But I liked the tone of it. I think J.R. Duncan's writes super fun books. I like that this is an edgier Cap. I mean, if you think about it, we don't like our superheroes to murder, generally speaking, Josh and I. However, in a war, Cap certainly killed a lot of Nazis. And here, they're basically in a war. And one of the reservations that Monet and Psylocke have about joining Captain America's team is they don't want the Boy Scout to be stopping them from doing what needs to be done. And he says, avenge them. All of your people got killed. You need to avenge them. And there's a very sort of lit up by flames close up of his face as he said it. Like it's almost like this is Cap back in war mode, facing off against totalitarian, fascism. And I like that edge to it. I thought this was also really fun. I really liked this book.
I thought it was fun. It was very seat of your pants, I think. My conclusion that I have come to about this whole thing, and it was the Hellfire Gala was sort of the first one that kicked it off, and it was really fun. I feel like I might enjoy this more in a combined sort of thing.
What do you mean?
12 issues.
Oh, like a miniseries, like an event.
Yeah, or maybe into a couple of books, but I feel like
this is a miniseries. This is only one of 5.
Okay, but it's in like 1,000 books. I don't know how many months it's going to go, but I feel like it's gonna stretch me too thin.
Well, if you take the long view, or the 360-foot view, the X-Men no longer dominate the market, right? There was a time when we were in high school and elementary school where everyone who read comics read the X-Men books. It's no longer that way anymore. It's a subculture of comics. And so would the X-Men power a company-wide event? Maybe. Or they could sell 1 million books to the small X-Men fans. And that's, what do comic publishers know how to do? Sell a lot of books to a small number of people. So...
And it's honestly, it's not anything that's wrong with it, but because it is so expansive.
No, I get it. You're an outsider. You don't want you can't invest in 100 books.
Yeah, and it's not even that. I don't. It's not that interesting to me. So I think this happened before was the beginning of Krakoa. I was like, that's kind of interesting, and then it was like now there are 12 titles, and it's going to go on for 3 years, and I don't like it that much.
Right.
So every week, but I feel like there's like 5 or 10 X-Men books every week. And I basically just look and see who's writing them. Like if Jerry Duggan is writing it, I'm reading it. If somebody else that I really like, or, I'll read it. But otherwise, and this works, by the way, I can just read some of it and I still get the main gist of it. I just feel like I want the story to be smaller, which is not really, doesn't matter. Like it's, and also in this book, I really wanted the reveal of who Captain Krakoa is. And
me too. I'm very excited about that. I'm sure I'll be disappointed or not know who it is, but I see what you're saying. I'm actually curious how long it's actually going to go on. Like I said, this is a one of 5. Krakoa went on for years, but that was more of a status quo than a story. This is a story, right? And this is leading to whatever is the next version of the X-Men. So It may not go on for more than 5 or 6 months. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that.
So I became distracted in the middle of this book because they called Psylocke Quanon.
Quanon, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, what? Because I don't really follow, but apparently this is not like even close to a new thing. And I read like the whole Betsy Braddock Wikipedia entry, and then the whole Quanon, and I was like, ugh, this is what I hate about X. It's body swapping, and it's just the whole. It's like, ugh.
Well, they swapped her out, to be fair.
I
yes,
I
know.
get it.
It happened a while ago, but I understand if you only read the books in the Jim Lee era, you'd be like, what the hell's going on?
Who is
her name's
this?
Betsy.
Is she not? She doesn't have telekinesis. She has whatever power she needs to have, but it's not mutant. It's just like, forget it.
Alpha Flight #1 also came out. Ed Brisson, Scott Godlewski, Matt Miller, Travis Lanham. What we check in with our Canadian brethren.
Is Ed Brisson a Canuck? Let's see.
I don't know.
I saw it. I was like, sounds like a Canadian name.
This
let's see.
Enjoyable. Also a 5-issue miniseries, much like Uncanny Avengers. I like this. I'm always Alpha Flight curious. You know what I mean? Like, when I was a kid, it was like there was that weird non-X-Men team from Canada, and I remember reading I certainly read it when John Byrne wrote and drew it. But that's mostly because I like John Byrne.
He lives in Halifax, Nova Scotia with his wife and daughter.
There's a lot of comic people in Halifax.
Every guy who gets anywhere who is a Canadian in comics is going to have a run on Alpha Flight or Wolverine.
Well, now we just know we got to keep our eye on Ed. But that's a callback to early in the show.
Yeah.
I mean, not the show, but the show itself.
Yeah.
I thought this was fun. I didn't love it, but I thought it was fun. Like you said, this week was a lot of that were solid books that were not great. This was like that. It was like, this was solid. I enjoyed it. The twist was interesting. I didn't realize they weren't all mutants again, because I haven't been there for every issue of Alpha Flight, but I was like, wait, they're not mutants?
I've never liked Alpha. Like, I've tried to, but it just doesn't do anything for me. And so like a lot of this book was revealing like so and so, and I kind of know the names. I was like, this must be a person who used to be on Alpha Flight. Also, I went down a hole and I was like, you know what? I don't fucking know anything about Puck, and he's also like 3 different people. And I was like, just let him be a dude with a mustache. But it's actually, that sounds like John Byrne. I was like, I don't know. John Byrne just invented him as he's a dwarf.
Yep.
Or a little person, but at the time he was a dwarf, which was the correct thing to say. And he's real strong, not super strong, just a little strong. Yeah, he's like Batman. He's very strong. He's athletic. He does the stuff, and he fought the good fight. And like everybody after him just destroyed that. And now there's a different Puck or whatever. But it looks exactly
can't leave well enough alone.
Like have a little person who's a badass.
Right, be awesome.
Let him do that. There's no reason not to do that. Just keep doing that. But it was fine. I just kind of didn't care.
So the final book that came out this week, also one of 5, is Dark X-Men #1 by people I've Steve Fox and Jonas Sharf. Never heard of them, but Frank Martin, Clayton Cowles I have. And this was based on the sort of the demon-y side of things. Madeline Pryor was the main character. And whatever. I don't really care about any of that. Here's why I care about this issue. It made me realize something. First of all, it's important to note the X-Men at their very DNA core have some freaky deaky sex stuff in the core of it, right? Like the guys who came up with the X-Men, not Jack and Stan, but like the people who revitalized the X-Men, specifically Chris Claremont, freaky deaky sex guys.
Oh yeah.
So at the core of almost every character, there's some freaky deaky sex stuff, right? So in this book, Madeline Pryor and Havoc are sleeping together. Okay. Why is that important? Madeline Pryor is a clone of Jean Grey.
Okay, I get
Jean
it.
Grey is Havoc's brother's wife. Now, think about that Thanksgiving Day. The first time Jean and Scott have prepared a nice sumptuous meal. The parents are there, the cousins. Oh, hey, Havoc's bringing his new girlfriend over. They walk in, and it's the clone of your brother's wife.
Mm-hmm.
How awkward is that going to be? How much eye contact is anybody going to make with Jean Grey? None. The fact it may have been addressed, I'm sure it has in the 25 years I have not been reading every X-Men comic, but it just occurred to me that, Josh, if one day your brother walked in and he was in a relationship with a clone of your wife, it might have a conversation might happen, right? Like, what's going on?
I'd be asking her that more than anything. What's going on? Why are you doing this?
It's just of all the characters that she's with, Madeline Pryor, it's the brother of the husband of the clone that you are of. It's a lot. It's very freaky deaky.
Sure.
Anyway, it was fine. I don't really care about the demons. I probably won't continue this one, but I will continue the other two.
I didn't read that one.
That's fine. That's all. Listen, the only thing worthwhile talking about in my head was a story that I made up in my head outside of the book. Everything else, I'm not super into demon stuff and Azazel.
I want you to let me know if one of the, because I'm trying.
Keep reading Uncanny Avengers. It's only 5 issues.
It's fine. I'm trying, but I will lose interest. And I'm not going to try everything. So you need to let me know, like, this is real good. This is
my rule of thumb with the X-Men right now is if Jerry Duggan's writing it, I read it.
Yes.
So the X-Men, the regular X-Men book and the Uncanny Avengers book, those are the two he's writing.
It's his story, and so 100%, I'm with you.
So those are the books we wanted to talk about, but at patreon.com/iFanboy, every patron who supports the show gets to vote to add a book to the rundown. We call it the Patron Pick this week by a 2.5 margin, so 2.5 times as many votes as the number 2 book. The winner was The Cull, number 1 from Image Comics. It's the second Kelly Thompson Image comic book after the other one. The name just went away in my head.
No, that's not what it's called. Black Cloak.
Dark Cloak?
Black Cloak. Black Cloak.
That was a fantasy book. This is a sci-fi book, I think, or a horror book. Anyway, Matea de Elise is the artist, and Hassan Otsmane Alwahu is the letterer. And I think, Josh, this is a prime example of the Image comic number 1 that gives you not enough information to care. The Black Cloak book was double-sized, and so you really got to figure out the characters in the world and the story. Yeah. And this is the opposite of what I talked about with Void Rivals, where with Void Rivals, I still don't know the story, but I care about the characters and the situation. Here, I finished it, and I was like, I don't know why I would ever continue reading this story. They give me nothing here to care about.
There's only one reason I would consider. I don't think I'm as harsh on it. I think I'm more ambivalent at this point. But
it's ambivalent. It's like, that was interesting, but I don't care about any of these characters. I don't know these characters. There's 15 characters here.
Yeah, I am down with Kelly Thompson, obviously, and at a certain point, when you like somebody's work a lot, it becomes very interesting when you see them take a different direction than you've taken them, and it's academic more than it is like I'm loving this, but I'm really curious because I love to see the other side of people. And also when I had her on the show, I think, she sort of talked about how, there's some things that she doesn't do particularly well. And since then I've seen her working on those things,
which is cool. Which is very cool.
Like the, the actiony stuff. And I
lean into what scares you, right?
Yeah.
And otherwise you're just coasting.
And so in that case, if this is her stretching, I'm willing to allow for, maybe not having it be perfect. And I don't know if it's her stretching it. I just think it wasn't enough information. And this is not an indictment on the work. The art's really strong. The art is not a style I like at all, but I thought it was really well done. There's a couple of things in here that I wanted. You can finish your thought.
No, I was just saying she introduced so many characters. These group of girls, and I think one man. I can't be sure. They're going off to make a movie, and they're all sneaking out of their house. And you get kind of a little bit of backstory on some of the characters, but by the time you get to the end, there's 5 characters. It's a lot to take in, and this isn't a regular size comic. This is not a double size comic. And I don't really know enough about why anybody is doing anything.
Well, we know that
going into this portal into a crazy alien world that they found in a cave.
Well, we know from the first page, which is in a wonderful double page spread, which, by the way, I believe shouldn't have been there so soon. Yeah, I think that would have made the later, because what you're just waiting for is for that to happen. This is a double page spread here, and it is It is magnificent. It's a big, scary monster. Someone's getting eaten for some reason. Everybody's shoes have been left on the beach, which is funny because like there's a bunch of people had been on the beach and they ran away, but the only thing left are shoes. And I was like, that's weird. And I hope that means something. The other thing that got me is on page 4 of the book itself, when it says 12 hours ago, it has this girl and she's drawing unhappy faces on flags. But if you look at her arm, it has cutting scars on it. And I thought, wow, that's
subtle.
Really well done for a comic book. It's hard to, but the art is super photorealistic. I mean, it is Alex Ross-ish.
Yeah, it's not a style you love normally, but I thought it was really well done.
Yes. No, but it worked in terms of letting us know that the characters were super realistic. And I was looking at it, I was like, I don't feel like this is super photo referenced.
Look at page 12 where the actress Lux is putting makeup on in the mirror, covering up her black eye.
Yeah.
Look at that second panel. That there's so much storytelling in her face there. And that's a level of acting that you don't get from most artists, which they can't. It would be really hard to do just in a line drawing. This is a painted.
And then the other thing that's happening as you look through it, and I noticed this too, and this is what has made me a little softer on it, is that the lighting in this is so good. The page after the one that you're talking about is that, the girl looks through her door and you see the sort of bluish TV light. And then you look how that next scene, the next panel just tells you so much about what's going on there. I was really impressed by this art for sure. And looking like when the girls are walking along, they all have like different body types. I
was just thinking there have been so many image books in a row we've read that have been double sized to start off. And I was like, this is the one you don't. We're 5 characters and complicated backstories and motivations, and I don't know anything. The one book that doesn't get 40 pages is this one. I don't know if it's because the artist couldn't do it, or what.
I mean, that's viable. I'm willing to give it I don't think that it bothered me as much as I wasn't fully hooked. And that's just the case. But Kelly Thompson gets a lot of slack from me, and I'm really curious to see where it goes. And I think there was enough in this. There was enough in this art that made me really impressed. And I feel like the art to me seemed really intentional. If you look on the last couple of pages after they look out on the fantasy world, the light comes down on the one girl's lower half of her face, very specifically in 2 of the panels. And what is that about? And also on the 2 pages later,
because they're standing under a cave. So
I know, but like it's just on her. Like I feel like there's something that is.
She's the shortest.
Yeah.
So the light wouldn't hit their faces because she's getting.
Yes, but it's consistent through all those pages. There's even one. Look, if you look at the last page and the top, she is leaning forward. The other girl is basically level with her. Or maybe that's the guy. I don't really know. They did this on purpose in comics, but I'm fine with that. Whatever. But the light is like that on her face there as she's leaning forward. And when she comes back, it's not. I don't know. I hope that means something because it's very specific.
Yeah,
and that's all. And then, like I said,
I'm torn about sticking with it. I don't know because I found there was nothing in the issue itself that made me want to stick with it. But we both really love Kelly Thompson's work. So maybe
I didn't love Black Cloak.
Yeah, I struggled getting. I thought the final issue was good, but I thought I struggled
liked
with that
it a lot, and I'm glad that I read it. I'm glad that it was done, but I didn't love it. I wanted to, but in the same way though, like she's been one of my favorite quote unquote newer writers over the years. So I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. If it goes off the some things go off the edge. I mean, Rick Remender has books that I'm like I don't like that.
Yeah, it happens. It's okay. Yeah. What are your ratings on the Cull number 1?
Cull.
The Culling. Out of 5, I'm going to give it 2.5.
I'm gonna go 3.6.
Okay.
I didn't want to go 3.5. I don't think that was enough. I didn't want to go 3.75. So there we are.
And you're going to stick with it. I'm going to make it a game time decision.
No.
If it comes out a week where I've got 30 books, it's going to be difficult. But if it comes out in a short week, then we'll see. Patreon.com/iFanboy. Every patron gets to vote out a book to the rundown. And that's where the people who feel like they want to directly support the show, people who feel like there's a lot of value in what we do in our 6 to 8 shows we produce a month, that there's some entertainment value, that we bring some light and levity into your life, that you make your comic reading more fun. There you go to patreon.com/iFanboy and help support the show. They've unlocked shows for everyone to listen to. They become part of a great Discord and presumably Facebook community. And they get a monthly patron hangout with Josh and I and Ron Richards and sometimes other people. And we have a good time there as well. So hopefully we make it fun for them and they make it fun for you. And if you ever consider supporting the show, please consider doing so at patreon.com/iFanboy. We've added our tier exclusive merch, which has started arriving. People are posting photos of it. You can keep doing so. We enjoy seeing them. And hopefully you enjoy it. You get the merch. We don't even get this merch. I would love to have some of this merch.
You don't get it.
I'd have to be a patron to do it. iFanboy.threadless.com is our t-shirt store. You can find our 13 designs there. iFanboy.com/support is our PayPal tip jar. iFanboy.com/Amazon is where you can shop and also find all the Booksplode books linked there. And bookshop.org is our partner to help local bookstores. You can also find those links on the Booksplode posts. And we thank everybody who supports the show. It is a not inconsiderable cost to do, and we appreciate it. Thank you. Oh, and now, for the very special patrons who are $5 or higher a month, they get a superpower live on the show. Is it dumb? Is it awesome? It's a roll of dice, my friends. Josh, take it away.
Tony the Disney Dad has the specific ability to banish Hamilton songs from his head.
Whoa. First of all, I wonder if he's from the Scarsdale Disney Dads.
It's because the the Springfield Disney Dads are a horrific lot of folk.
Yeah. I don't even get into the Fresno Disney Dads. So,
oh my God,
he can banish. Does he not like the songs?
No, it's not the point. Have you ever listened to Hamilton?
Sure.
And had a song, any one of the hundreds of songs, they stick in your head, unlike anything.
Can he banish them from other people's heads? Can I go, Tony?
No, it's just his own.
You got to get Aaron Burster out of my head.
No, you can't, sir. I literally the other night, I woke up 3 a.m, just this middle verse of wait for it in my head.
Huh.
I am inimitable. I am an original. I was like, go to sleep. And it wouldn't stop. And I thought the best power in the world I could have right now. And he's the Disney Dad.
Yeah.
Disney made the movie. It's on their app.
So he can only banish it from his own head.
It's enough.
All right.
And that would be enough.
Thank you, Tony the Disney Dad, for being a patron. Patreon.com/iFanboy.
You'll be back.
Go with the power that Josh has bestowed upon you.
The
Josh,
thing is,
I think we have time for one email. You get to choose.
He can fully enjoy Hamilton without that Hamilton hangover.
I get it. I totally get it.
Oh, we all love Hamilton. Greg from Philly says, I have a quick game for you.
Ooh.
Below is a list of characters. I'd like you to each name the first writer and artist that comes to mind for that character. Please note the writer and artist do not necessarily need to have worked on that character together, just the first that comes to your mind. For example, if I said Ben Grimm, you could say Jack Kirby or Jonathan Hickman. Okay, here we go. Now, I am covering it with my hand. I've had this on my list for weeks now, and I have not. I've tried. I
love these games
or think about it, and I thought this was a good one, and I wanted to make sure Greg got his due.
Rorschach game.
All right, so here goes.
Wait, hold on. Are we going to do both a writer and an artist, or just any creator we think of?
You should,
or just their artist?
You should pick a writer and an artist to say.
Okay.
That's what he says. A writer and an artist. They do not have to have worked on it together.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Moon Knight.
Bill Sienkiewicz and Doug Munch. I don't even remember if Doug Munch actually wrote Moon Knight, but that's the name that pops in my head.
I'm going to go with Max Bemis and Declan Shalvey.
Oh.
Because Max Bemis wrote that great, but you know what? But it was who I thought of first.
I get it. I said Bill
thought of Declan Shalvey, and then I thought, Greg Smallwood, but I thought of Declan first. And Declan created that whole new look. That was one of the most beautiful comics I'd ever seen.
Did Bill Sienkiewicz do Moon Knight?
Should have.
I feel like I just seeing a drawing of Moon Knight in my head. It couldn't necessarily mean he did the book. But anyway, this is a test. This is a test.
At the end, we'll check. Okay, next one up, Plastic Man.
Pass.
Really?
No, I'm just like immediately nothing popped in my head.
I mean, I've got to go with Graham Morrison and Howard Porter because that was the first significant time I spent with Plastic Man in the.
I
Justice
feel like
League.
I did before that in the Bronze Age. I just can't think of who the creative teams were. So, and I feel like there hasn't been a significant use of Plastic Man other than in Deceased since JLA. So I think I have to go with you and say Grant Morrison and Howard Porter, even though I don't feel good about that answer.
I'm telling you right now, I just glanced, and the problem with me in this is going to be that I will want to tell you the people at home like Bill Mantlo and Herb Trimp,
right?
But I don't know that stuff well enough to do it, and I'm ashamed of it. So let's move along.
So all your answers are going to be recent. That's fine.
I'm going to try not to. Luke Cage.
I mean, this is such a shitty answer, but Bendis
was mine too,
and. You know what? You know who I think of honestly when I picture him is Sanford Green when he did that miniseries.
Oh, that was great. I picture an image of him, but I don't know who drew it.
Right. Oh, that's hard.
Like I see the tiara, I see the '70s comic. I don't know who drew it though.
Yeah.
But that is what I see.
The thing is, I
didn't like the Bendis. He was just a guy. He wasn't like in the suit. I mean, maybe if I had to, I'd say Kev Walker because he was on that Thunderbolts team with him for a bit.
Bendis leveled Luke Cage. It feels shitty to say, but he did level him up into like an A-list character for a while. So I don't feel
and he gave him his due. I mean, it wasn't that he. It's just that he gave the character a platform, and made him into a thing so that people could appreciate him because he was. I don't know. I haven't read it, but he was, I think of him as a sort of one note character that they sort of did, but they didn't put much realism into him. And I don't think anybody would say that Bendis didn't flesh him out into a real human-like character. I think that's definitely the case. God, that Sanford Green, David F. Walker book was
so
great.
Good.
Blue Beetle.
Giffen de Matthias Maguire.
Yep. I immediately thought of Mike Norton because that was like his favorite thing, but the image in my head was Giffen.
Yeah.
Writer, I'd have to go with them, but I don't know if I've even read Alan Moore.
I mean, you've Alan Moore.
Yeah, because in The Watchmen, it's basically seriously, that's
so you're cheating and you're saying Watchmen.
It's first thing that comes to mind.
Okay,
that's the joke. It's a Rorschach test, Connor.
I gotcha.
Next up, Magneto.
Claremont and Lee. That's what I think of.
I'm trying to think what I think of.
I don't even think of Byrne. I think of Lee. Big barrel-chested, wavy, silver hair, looking like a supermodel.
I was gonna say that I thought of Stan Lee as the writer.
Yeah, but I get it. But you can't.
No, that's what
Have you
that's
even
what I
read
thought
those comics?
No, I haven't. But I haven't read the Claremont ones either.
Okay.
Frank Quitely. That's what it was. I was trying to figure out what the image I saw in my head was, and it was the Morrison Quitely run. That's how I see him.
Okay.
Captain Cold. Jeff Johns,
because he really honed in on those,
and then
rogues,
and then what's his name?
I mean, you're saying lines. Scott Collins.
Yes.
Mine is, I mean, yes. Again, these are all sort of really modern because that's what we're really super into. But a part of me thinks Carmine Infantino, but really it's Collins because those stories about the rogues are so seminal to those.
Listen, you can know about that background stuff, but the first thing
because of my age is Collins.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hawkeye.
Byrne.
Both.
Byrne for the West Coast Avengers.
If I had a second runner-up,
but also for the Avengers, right? Like he drew the Avengers, what Hawkeye was on it as well. So when I think of Hawkeye, I think of Byrne.
The second one for me would be Busick and who drew Thunderbolts? Who drew the first Thunderbolts? Perez?
No, Bagley.
No,
Bagley.
Yeah, I mean there it is though. That's the thing. But it's Byrne. I mean, like if it's first, it's definitely Byrne. Yeah. Wonder Woman. This is the last one.
Perez. George Perez.
I'm
writer
gonna
and artist.
Say
Both.
Luis Garcia.
Lopez.
Because
Jose Luis
and you
Garcia
brought
Lopez.
this up, is that like the image to her in my mind is the one that was on everything when I was growing up. And that was his for the most part. If not him specifically, it is his style. That's what I see. Writer? Man.
I mean, there's so many DC characters who, when I think of them, I see Jose Luis Garcia Lopez's non-comics work. All those drawings that would go on toys or books, all the merchandise, all the consumer products that he did the style guides for and did all the character work. That's who I see in my head. So I mean, I'm totally not wrong.
I see John Buscema for that with Marvel, just because how to draw comics the Marvel way. Right. Writer, it's really hard for me. I don't know. I haven't ever read. I mean, Greg Rucka was the first thing that came to mind, but I haven't ever really.
I mean, you see Darwin, right?
Oh yeah, but I didn't think of it first.
Yeah, there you
That's
go.
my favorite. That is my favorite Wonder Woman by far, both design and right. Yes, 100%.
But I didn't think of it first. Like you said, this is the game. The game that popped in my head was Perez's. Her with her arms crossed over her head, clinking her bracelets together. Like that's what I think of first, with the flowing Greek hair. What
I think that this showed us is that you can be as knowledgeable as you want about the history of comics and the art and whatever, but the one that is going to stick with you is the first one you saw, and that's just how it is.
Yeah, maybe Luke Cage would be the first one, but
right,
to define the character.
Right.
Thanks for writing in, Greg from Philly.
That was wonderful.
That's awesome. We had a great question last week, a great question this week.
I would love to say.
I love games.
It'd be fun to get another list like that sometime. Not next week.
Yeah, not next week. We're not going to do it.
Not next week.
Different characters.
Yeah. Or a different spin on it. Something.
Contact at iFanboy.com is where Greg wrote in. You could also write in to be on the Media Explode show. Write in and put Media Explode in the subject line. Thanks for writing in. We got lots of great emails this week, and that was one of them, and I appreciate that one, Greg.
Word. There are shows.
Yeah.
It's not just this show. There's other shows. Believe it or not, we really do our best to provide as much content as humanly possible. And I think that if you look over the past year or so, you'll find that we are almost consistently doing 2 shows a week.
It's like 6 to 8 a month. So it's either 2 a week or it's 2 extras. It's never less than 6, but it's sometimes as many as 8.
So a few 2-3 weeks ago, you would have gotten the last Media Explode, which was Oppenheimer and the Summer Mailbag. Yep. 3 men being effusive about Oppenheimer, and apparently the world agrees. This past week, as you are listening to this, will have been the Animation Brain Trust finally managed to get together for Justice League War World, and is that based on the recent Action Comics?
It is not, and that's part of the discussion. Yes.
Well, that is interesting.
That was part of the confusion.
It's a Mongol story, no doubt.
It is a Mongol story, but it's not based on the recent run, which was confusing for everyone. But
I got to tell you, if right now, by the way, if you said Superman, I would be hard pressed to not say the Bruce Timm kind of Superman.
Interesting.
I'd be very hard pressed.
Might be Byrne, but I get it. It could be Kurt Swan, but
it would either be Kurt Swan or whatever that 80s. Super, but it's
or Jurgens. Right, there's a lot of classic, iconic Superman, but for me, it's that image of Superman flying out at the end of Man of Steel from his parents' house. It's the final shot of the book.
I'm telling you, Ray,
my Superman.
I think that Superman the Animated Series is my favorite Superman.
Oh, for
Superman,
sure.
Batman the Animated Series is easily my favorite Batman.
It's the best Batman it's ever been, but also, I mean, look, you can very much make the case, and I would not necessarily disagree that the Superman was the best Timmverse show.
It's easily my favorite.
It was very, very good. And I have to rewatch Batman.
I remember everybody being so into Batman and how great it was, and it went in primetime, and I was like, yeah, but this Superman show.
It's really good.
And I wasn't like a huge Superman kid. I mean, when I was a kid, I liked Superman, but I wasn't like, it hadn't been my thing, and it just was so wonderful. Anyway, so there's an animated Justice League World out, and then next week you can treat yourself to a conversation, a deep, not untherapy-like conversation with myself and Rick Remender.
Ooh, Rick Remender, by the way, I think the most talk explodes. He's the first 5-timers club.
I think this is actually 6, but it has been a very long time, and I have never interviewed.
Yeah, it was always Ron because they were.
It was. I did one with Ron.
Right. Rick has been on 7 Talk Explodes.
Nice.
7. He was the second guest of all time, and he's been on 7.
I'm excited to bring it to you as I always am. It was great.
You can find all that show. All of our shows are over 1,300 shows total over at iFanboy.com. They're all there. Also, wherever podcasts are sold, they're all in the feed. The feed is live and updated. You can find them all. So wherever you get podcasts, you can do it. My unwieldy iFanboy feed on my Apple Podcast app, I try to find episodes, and it's like, you've got 85 unlistened to shows. I'm like, well, fuck, I'm never going to find it. So you can find them all there. They're all available. You can follow us at iFanboy Comics on Instagram to find out what the pick of the week is before the show comes out. And sometimes the best week in panels, most times, sometimes less in the summertime. Follow us individually at CSCallPatrick on Instagram and at J Flanagan on Instagram. That's the only place where you can find us. That is it. Anyone else pretending to be us is a liar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to find a lot of comic book content there unless I'm complaining about lettering. That's all there is.
Very on brand.
I love it. I love the nuts and bolts of comic book storytelling so much. It is my favorite thing. Subscribe to youtube.com/iFanboy where you will find all of our old video shows, and we post this show every week. And most importantly, different than everything else on YouTube, is that we really try not to clip the mics. That's like a big thing for me. Because everyone that my kids listen to screams and makes the mic clip. And a man with my background in training wants to stab their eyes out. It is deeply offensive. Yeah. But this is the way of things. This is how it goes. And I'm not a tastemaker, but it is awful, and I want them to die. Painfully.
Jeez.
Nah, I don't. I just don't want to hear them. That's all. Consider writing a review for this show.
Oh boy.
God forbid why you would do that at this point. Or leaving a star rating on Apple Podcast, Spotify, whichever. And other shows. Like if the other podcast. And you know what? I am remiss on this a lot of times. I should probably go through and some of my favorite podcasts should get a review. But I always think, I'm like, well, these are professional. They still could use that review. You should listen to The Set. That was a great podcast that Connor and I both enjoyed.
Yes.
And is that it? Are we done?
That's it. Good? We're done.
Phew.
I'm sweating. I'm hungry. And I've enjoyed this time with you, all of you.
Are you in a well?
Well, I had the dentist today, and I didn't get to eat food until this point. So,
so it was a filling situation.
No, it's just I didn't want to eat food and then go to the dentist.
Oh, it was a late dentist?
It was an afternoon dentist.
I see.
No fillings, but I just didn't eat beforehand, so I'm hungry.
There's the show, people. This is what the show is.
That's what it is now.